stylistically is Cleveland's best play, and they have the money to make all those moves happen.
I would agree. I only had different ideas with some of the players. I agree with Chrome as their second corner. I agree with the running back. I don't think a lot of people saying they should draft running back. Honestly, running back translate well to the NFL, but sometimes it's like, how well do they translate? Moreno was one. I actually think Ben Tate would work out really well too. I mean, it's really a toss-up between them. I mean, it depends on just who they want. And Calvin Tate works. There's a lot of linebackers, but there's like a lot. But to me, it all depends on who they draft with that second pick, or what position do they draft. I think since they should actually sign a running back instead of drafting him, I think that second pick should go with another pass catcher so they can kind of spread it out. Have Jordan Cameron, Josh Gordon. I don't know who else would be down there. I don't know if like Marquise Lee could slip to their second pick or something like that. And I guess Calvin Pace works. Although, how old is Calvin Pace now? I'm not sure.
I will have an answer for your question in just a second. Calvin Pace is 33 years of age. And Cleveland's defense is young, too. That's what I would defend that statement with. You know, even though Calvin Pace is 33 years of age, he's still pretty good against the run and good enough against the pass. And let's face it, Cleveland's defense is a young team. They need veteran leadership, and I think Pace can bring that.
Yeah, you know who I thought they should have got? Or was Dakota Jackson. But, yeah, I think, Calvin Pace works. I mean, I always can't fall too far in love with the young players because sometimes it's like you have no leadership. Granted, one team that showed that I guess benefited from that later was the San Francisco 49ers, when their whole defense was completely on. And they played good, but they weren't as good as could be because of that lack of veteran leadership. But then, 4 years later, everybody's like a stud. I think that works. But I don't know what the Cleveland Browns are going to do because sometimes I think they overthink themselves. Like they're just like, oh, I'm going to outthink everybody, and then that's it.
Well, it's interesting.
I think sometimes instead of outthink everybody, they outthink themselves.
I think they just have been a victim of bad general managing over the last few years. I think they had Mike Lombardi last year, who he won the Trent Richardson trade, but in terms of draft picks, he didn't really do much. He doesn't have much of a track record with being successful in the NFL draft, and that's a problem, especially if you're the guy who was supposed to be labeled as the savior of the Cleveland Browns. He got fired after 1 year. He and Coach Chudzinski just gone after the first year. Cleveland actually had a solid thing going. There was developmental room, and there still is, but I'm worried that they may be a victim of just bad general management and just continuing to be bad.
Yeah, I think was another bad horrible pick. Obviously, was Brandon Weeden. I think the issue with the Weeden draft was they needed a QB. So Brandon Weeden was like the worst of the projected top best. So they just picked him. Instead of actually saying that like the guy's not really that good, the only reason he's up here is because this is like not that steep of a quarterback draft. And that kind of messed them up. So the Trent Richardson trade they did win, which turns out to be really good this year. They just have to make sure that they actually make a good return on it. I mean, I don't know how well because it seems like Brandon Spreaker is not going back to the Patriots. Like it seems like there's this, he's really good on first down, pretty good on second down. Third down, he can't really do much. And they have Jamie Collins now, and Hightower's still there, and Juwan Mayo's going to be back. So I guess Calvin Pace could work. Maybe a Brandon Spikes, depending. I kind of feel like he wants to go back to warm weather, though. So I'm not sure if he's going there.
It's interesting because Spikes leaving the Patriots has generated the effect of throwing a golf ball into the ocean in terms of Boston media as a whole. It's as a whole, Spikes is pretty much known for being a run-stopping guy, and he even would go on to tell the Boston Herald, quote, "Everyone says you never want to burn a bridge. I just feel like both sides could benefit from a fresh start. I just feel like I'm out here, I'm available 100%. Any team willing to take a chance on me is going to get a playmaker. A guy who's aggressive on the field, looking to be a difference maker, a captain, a leader on the defense, and a guy who's ready to lead the charge." So there's some kind of falling out between Spikes and the Patriots. I don't exactly know what it was, and for me to guess is, simple speculation, which we can leave to the TMZs of the world. I don't think the Patriots will miss Brandon Spikes, but the fact that his loss is just going to be completely and utterly disregarded up here is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's because he was really good at what he was really good at, and then was really bad at what he was really bad at. So then it kind of averaged out to be average. And because of the emergence of Jamie Collins at the end of the year, all of a sudden Jamie Collins started to look like a star for the last 2-3 games. And when Mabe comes back healthy, he probably wouldn't even start. Because they have that guy Fletcher who just came out of nowhere. They have a lot of guys, and I guess they're trying to just save money and kind of just work for whoever they have, which is good until it comes to a guy like Wilford, where they're kind of debating whether they should keep him or not, but I actually do think they should.
Yeah, the Wilfork thing has generated a lot of national discussion up here. Herald columnist Rob Borges wrote a piece as to why the Patriots absolutely should keep Wilfork. However, he didn't really offer much in terms of what Vince has to offer on the field, and there wasn't a whole lot of what Vince has to offer on the field because everyone's judging it based off of production versus cap hit. In the latter half of his career, Vince Wilfork's role hasn't necessarily been to put up stats, I would argue. It's been to occupy two offensive linemen, which he can still do, even though he is at an advanced age in his career, and even though he's $32 million into a $40 million contract with 11.5 against the cap coming up this upcoming season. So I think ideally, if the Patriots are trying to make this big push in free agency and they want to see if they can get Vince to restructure his contract as opposed to cutting him outright and then making yourself weaker at another position, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Especially when the running game in today's NFL isn't as dead as everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, that's for one. Everybody thinks that people still run the ball. It's just in fact, teams still run the ball a lot. It's just that maybe the Patriots ran the ball a lot last year. It seems like the Patriots and Denver and the Saints and certain people would pass well, but that's only certain teams. Those are the teams we like. Those are the teams that are highlighted. So, I mean, what Vince has 1 year with $7.5 million left on the contract, it's not like you're overpaying the guy. I mean, and that's my issue. You're not, if you there's a difference of wanting to pay somebody less than saying that he's overpaid. I mean, he occupies that middle. He's a nose guard, so nose guards are not going to put up that many stats. When he's on the field, Chandler and whatever else defensive that they actually put in that game, because they change that guy every game, get more sacks. Their run defense is better. Their linebackers can play more free. Like, their linebackers make better tackles at better yardage when he's in the game. So I think it's because he's a defensive nose tackle and he's not J.J. Watt. And that's why people aren't seeing what he really is. Because J.J. Watt, he can play at the 3-4. He's a little, not bigger. I mean, I don't think anybody's bigger than Vince Wilfork, but he's taller and he swats down the passes. And he's more of a he's more of a sexier player, I guess. Wilfork has that more of an old school feel, but at defensive tackle, you don't really have to move on with the time. There's no times for a defensive tackle. There's times for a receiver. Back in the day, receivers could have been running 5-3s, but today you still just need a big defensive tackle And I think if they get rid of him, the defense is going to take a really big hit, unless they know something that we don't.
See,
and they have some defensive tackle in the waiting that's going to be just as good as Vince Wilfork.
I don't think they have that guy that is going to be as good as Vince Wilfork in terms of doing what he can do. And what I don't seem to understand in terms of, oh, you don't need Wilfork's position. I like the conversation of not wanting to pay him 11.5 against the cap or 7.5 in base is one thing, but to just say, oh, you don't need him at that particular position, it's irrelevant in today's NFL. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Seattle Seahawks are primarily a running team, and they just won the Super Bowl. I mean, granted, their defense was otherworldly, but they were of an older school mentality. You know, run the ball, play great defense. I would say San Francisco is the same type of thing. Carolina, definitely the same type of thing. And aren't those the three teams that everybody's trying to beat?
And if you look at not even only their running, but their defense, I mean, their defense, yeah, they have, San Francisco's secondary is solid. It's not great. I mean, most people can't even really name their secondary anyway. It's really about their front seven, and defensive tackle is part of the front seven. And even though Seattle, they're the whole Legion of Boom, their secondary, a lot of their success has come from their defensive line being able to get to Peyton Manning, or not even getting to him, but pushing the pocket a lot closer to him. I mean, he didn't get sacked that much, but he got hit. They were in his face, and that's what Vince Wilfork does. He pushes that pocket. Like, the best case scenario for a QB is to stay in the middle, in the pocket, because all sides of the field are even to him. He can see, 180 degrees in front of him. The problem is when you move that pocket outside, all of a sudden that left side gets cut off because, that pass is longer. Now you're kind of subjected to one side. Now you're closer to the defensive end. And, people don't see that. People only see stats season. And I think it's because of what me and you talked about was, the whole fantasy football kind of thing going on, where it's it's all about stats, and people don't actually see how those stats come out. They don't see how Mayo gets 100 tackles a year. They only see that he got 100 tackles a year.
I guess, the thing is, tackling isn't necessarily a lost art in football. Well, I mean, I never was concerned about defensive backs' ability to tackle. And what I mean by that is their job is to make sure that the pass doesn't get to the guy. You could be like Hal Arrington and always be around the ball, but if you're always giving up the catch and you're there to make the tackle as a defensive back, then what's the difference? But in terms of guys like front seven, Vince Wilfork and guys like that, he may not have a lot of tackles, but other players have more tackles because he's there. You mean to tell me that if you just got rid of Vince Wilfork, that Joe Volano and whoever they have coming up behind him after that are going to be more effective against other players because he's not there? I mean, again, restructuring his contract versus, just outright getting rid of him are two completely different conversations. And I think this just getting rid of him in hopes of trying to get a couple corners and a pass rusher, well, if you say you even do, okay, we'll say you do that. We'll say you even get rid of Vince Wilfork and you get another pass rusher. We'll say, heck, we'll give you Jared Allen. We'll say you re-signed Aqib Talib. And we'll say you got it like C.J. Ward at safety or something like that.
Okay.
And now, excuse me, and now you have the capacity for a pass rush, but if your pass rushers don't beat guys one-on-one, then you're not going to get to the quarterback. And guys in the middle will be gashed. Linebackers will be forced to make tackles. Then it's all of a sudden 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 5 as opposed to 2nd and 8, which does make a difference. And, there's just more value to Wilfork's position than people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, and something like you said, the middle is wide open. The Patriots gave up a lot of yards on draw plays when Wilfork wasn't in the lineup. And that was very, very, very evident, especially in their game against the Broncos. I think it was the second game. Yeah, you can see, they just kept running draw plays because they were like, well, it's open. It's wide open. I think when it comes to a sport like football, we equate the equivalent of assistant basketball to like a quarterback throwing to his receiver. But I guess you kind of call it scoring anyway.